Hi folks, this is Jay. I just want to share with you something that happened yesterday. I went on an atheist show. It's called Fundamentally Flawed, and they were ripping into a Christian guy called Robert there. Robert's a guy I like, and he's a brother in Christ, and I felt sorry for him. I know that he wasn't bothered. I know that you, Robert, didn't mind, and you didn't think they were ripping into you. But I thought that they were just taking the mick out of you. I thought they weren't respecting you. And I thought that it was a disgrace when you shared about your conversion experience that they had the arrogance to question your own experience. I wouldn't have done that to a Hindu or a Muslim or anybody, or even an atheist. I thought it was disgusting. And I was furious that they would have the arrogance to question anybody's experience. Anybody's journey, religious journey or intellectual journey, is their journey, and to question it, the integrity of a person's journey, is just nonsense. It's disrespectful, and I was really angry about it. So I went on the show and I pinned them down. I asked them a question about, give me a rationality. They were talking about evolution. I said, show me the basis of how we get rationality on the foundation of evolution. I kept asking the question and they were equivocating on it. They weren't dealing with it. They were saying, oh, we don't understand the question. These are people who have prided themselves on debunking presuppositional apologetics, and they would know if they knew anything about presuppositional apologetics. This is a basic question that presuppositionalists will bring to the table concerning evolution. So they were all saying, oh, we don't understand it, and stuff like that. And then I said to one of the main guys on the show, I said, because they were saying, oh, we don't know what you mean by reason. So I said, well, have a look at the Oxford Dictionary. So they read the Oxford Dictionary, and I said to them, that's how stupid you are, because you're trying to argue against presuppositional apologetics, where you should know what the definition of reason is, and you have to go to the Oxford Dictionary to kind of find a definition. You should already know that if you're in epistemological debates. So I called them out on that. They didn't realise the full significance of how stupid they looked. But then on top of that, to add insult to injury, they still hadn't got it. They still hadn't got the question. It wasn't that they hadn't got the question, it was the fact that they just didn't want to answer the question. Notice when I went on the show that Alex prides himself on being the defender against presuppositional apologetics. He knew I was asking a question that presups ask, but he never came out and debated me. He never came out and said, I understand where you're coming from, here's my argument. He went on to a definition of what reason was, and it was equivocating. Wasn't actually dealing with the issue. And then finally, it dawned on Redline. And he said, I know. And so I gave them a clap. I thought, this is ridiculous. They don't even know 101 in epistemology. And I left. I went back later on in the evening. I was quite aggressive, there's no doubt about it. But I was there to just pin them down and to stick up for my brother, who they were really taking the mick out of all night. They congratulate themselves and they patted Robert on the back for being a nice guy and for talking to them, and it was all civil. But it wasn't civil. They were just nasty, taking the mick out of him, dissing his faith, and it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. And I shouldn't have gone on the show because I'm above them and what have you. Anyhow, I went on the show to just defend my brother and to just show them that they don't know what they're talking about. Anyhow, to cut a long story short, they did actually give an argument for their position. Redline went into an evolutionary account of the process of reason. The problem with Redline is that it was begging the question. He presented no citations, he presented no evidence whatsoever for his position about how evolution can account for reason. The only person who touched upon it a little bit was Dr. Hunt. He mentioned about logic and that the Aristotelian logic is dependent on a description of what is there, the material. But what Alex didn't do, which I found was very, very interesting, on the fundamentally flawed, he didn't correct them. He didn't correct them, and he didn't offer to debate me, because he knew that his own people had shot themselves in the foot. You see, once you start to pontificate that logic is something that has developed from an evolutionary process, like Redline, once you admit, as Dr. Hunt says, that logic is merely a description of creation, then you have a big problem. Because logic then, if it is material, is something that actually changes. It becomes relative, because all things in nature change. So they've actually deconstructed their own position. They can't actually argue a case and say this is right and this is wrong, because if logic, the basic forms of logic, such as the law of non-contradiction, if that is just a material, something material that we have created, then it means logic is relative. So they've undermined the basis of rationality, and so evolution doesn't have a foundation for rationality. So Redline shot himself in his foot, Dr. Hunt shot himself in his foot. So it'd be interesting to know how Alex gets out of that problem. I suspect Alex just doesn't want to get involved because he knows he'd get his intellectual behind kicked. So anyhow, my video is saying, really, I went on that show and I was angry because of the way they were treating my brother and my Christian faith, mocking it, taking the mick out of it. And basically I asked them a simple question. They equivocated on it. They knew full well what I meant, but they didn't want to deal with the epistemological question. When it finally came out, their position, it was self-defeating. It was begging the question, no evidence there, and self-defeating, contradictory. If you make logic connected to, dependent on nature, then logic is relative, because nature changes, and if nature changes, then logic changes, and if logic changes, then logic is relative. And so if you're going to argue and say that Christianity is not true, well, so what? Logic is relative. Whose position's right, whose position's wrong? You've defeated yourself. So there we are, logic and evolution. If you can give me a foundation of rationality from evolution, I'd be interested to hear from you. I don't think you can.